One of the biggest questions that people have coming out of a toxic relationship, whether it's with narcissistic family members or even a spouse, is how do I not only break the chains, but start to put the pieces of my life back together to step into a purpose, to step into life, to step into a higher calling. Thankfully, I have a guest joining me, Miss Candace Van Dell. She's going to be here in just a moment to help me tackle this very important question. My name is Kevin. This is The Royal We. Before we do get into this with Miss Candace, I want to let you know that I'm here to support you. Down in the description box, you'll find access for one-on-one appointments with me. I do take telephone calls as well as video calls through Zoom, FaceTime, and WhatsApp. So if you are needing to talk with somebody right now about stepping into your purpose in this life, head on down there, schedule some one-on-one time with me. Also, I have a coaching program. My coaching program is live each and every day. So if you'd like to spend one-on-one time with me in a group setting, consider joining the Roe Coaching Program. Now, without any further delay, we're going to get into this topic of how do you step into your higher purpose, not only coming out of a toxic relationship, but just in a narcissistic society in general. It can be daunting. It can be very scary. So joining me to talk about this topic is Miss Candace Van Dell. Candace, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to The Royal We. The Royal We welcomes you to
Thank
its
you
platform.
for having me.
Now, Miss Candace, it's okay if I call you Miss Candace or just Candace.
You can call me Miss Van Dell, Miss Candace, whatever feels good for you.
Miss Van Dell, emotional rehab. You've been helping people rehab emotionally coming out of toxic, dysfunctional family dynamics. What do you see is the number one thing people are needing as they're breaking the chains and breaking out of toxic relationships and trying to step into their higher self? Well, I would say,
Yeah.
what do you think the number one thing is they struggle with first?
Well, the first thing that people understand, they understand, okay, something was wrong, but their inner child doesn't yet get it because they've been programmed for so long, not only by a toxic situation, but by a toxic world. And so one of the things that's hard is we look to the world as authority, as, someone who knows better than me, someone who's going to reflect myself to me. And this world will never do that. This world is built on a lot of people who are wounded, a lot of people who aren't living their higher will. They're living their personal will. And so we have kind of this narcissistic society. And, being a model for 25 years, I switched from being a model to a spiritual psychologist and really shifting my whole world by seeing that that world is also narcissistic. There's so many, avenues we can discuss this, but the true self comes from the reflection of your higher source. And when you don't have a personal relationship with God or higher power, you can't have your authentic purpose. And so that's a big issue for people because their inner world is so dialed into programming, conditioning, not only by parents and partners, but by this society.
I've got a deep question for you on this topic because I appreciate so much what you're saying and challenging people to step into a higher power. I'd like to ask your thoughts on what you've seen about how people have been even programmed as to what their higher power is and how that has also led into a trap of confusion and has kept people stuck, not living their best lives, always feeling judged, always feeling guilty because
Yeah.
of their higher power or their thoughts of their higher power. So how do you help people navigate this, Candace?
In my groups, this is such a great question. It comes up all the time because there's a lot of spiritual abuse. There's a lot of spiritual narcissists. There's a lot of religion that's abusive, right? So this gets really difficult. And I grew up Lutheran. I studied Buddhism. I studied so many different religions, just traveling the world for so many years. And what I came to personally, and it's different for everyone, is really finding what resonates with my true authentic self. And people are like, what the hell is that? So often, if you're doing something and it feels bad or it causes negative emotion, you have to dissect that. What's negative about this emotion? Is it that I'm wrong, I'm shamed according to my religion, or is it my religion might be off according to my authentic self? It's such a deep question. And that goes into layers. That's why I created emotional rehab, because there's layers to this that you're not understanding because you're not being taught it. So then you think there's something wrong with myself because myself isn't lined up with religion. And by the way, that's a lot of people who come out as gay or trans. It's a huge topic is, does God think that I'm sinful? And I'm like, wow, that's a whole other thing, right? So it's really finding your higher power, meaning your most authentic self that allows you to be healthy in mind, body, soul, emotion. Health to me is really the validation that I'm in alignment with self. Health, self. Wow, that rhymes.
No, I absolutely agree 100%. So would add, perhaps you're in the same mindset that sometimes isolating, stepping away from certain religious groups or church even. I know that as a Christian myself, it took me leaving the church, and I was pretty heavily involved, worship teams and lay council teams, and I had to step back from all of that to really figure out who I am, what my calling is, and what I'm
Mm-hmm.
to do. Now,
Yes.
yeah, so how do you start to help people and what steps they can take to start to navigate how to find themselves? How do you encourage people to take these risks, even face what they might perceive as causing guilt and shame?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times our true self is right behind a wall of
Yes.
guilt and shame. So, what are some advice and what are some tips, Candace?
So something that just came forward when you were talking is I always say the first awakening. I had my first spiritual awakening at a youth group convention when I was 15 years old in Atlanta, Georgia, with 2,000 other kids. And I had an out of body experience. And it's kind of insane, the experience. I talk about it a lot in my YouTube videos, but it was really lifting up and seeing things from up here and seeing things like I saw everyone's face looked like me. And I was like, oh, there's no separation. Separation is taught and better and worse is taught. And I saw that judgment was taught. And I immediately knew that my true self was perfect for my purpose. There was nothing wrong with me. And as a child being labeled with ADHD from the age 7, I always thought, well, there's something wrong with me in society. And God told me, not in my eyes. And that was the awakening I had. But the second awakening didn't happen until many, many years later when I realized that a lot of people still think that God is like their parents because they think their parents are God. And if you haven't done the tribal wound work, the generational wounds, emotional rehab, then you don't understand that you think you're being punished. The universe is punishing you. God's punishing you because your parents did. And we have to really lift up from God doesn't shame. Sorry, my God doesn't shame. Sorry if you guys have a different, God doesn't shame. I'm not afraid of God, right? There's a lot of different things going on. And so I say to step out of that, you have to look at where you got these ideas and these rules. Is it from a book? Is it from a spiritual awakening where you have this awakening of understanding everything is perfect for your purpose? Are you having these unhealed childhood wounds that are shaming you under the veil because your parent might be jealous of you? So to be safe, I can't be this self. Where is this coming from? That's step
Mm. Yeah, no, I truly appreciate that. This resonates also with the royal we, and with the royal we is doing at this present time. I switched to the wrong screen there. You know, it's fascinating that you say that and talk about shame. I started getting into cigars recently. Sometimes I'll have a cigar on my channel while I'm talking. Love wearing fur, and I love the responses that people sometimes give of, why are you dressed like that? What are you doing, even on the channel? And why do you have a cigar? And I've just come to the realization that this isn't God shaming me. These are people with certain rules, because, you know, the Bible says it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but it's what comes out. And so if the message is there to help people, it's for them, right? And so that's very good. I'm very glad that you have taken the time to talk about this. Are there any final thoughts, Candace? Anything else you want to add, perhaps about your program and where you see people going and being able to get the help they need, especially in a narcissistic society,
Yeah.
and how to step into their higher purpose?
You know, we could talk on that for an hour, but just to kind of cliff note it, you kind of said exactly what my biggest message is. You know, in emotional rehab, I created it because I found my true self outside of my societal definition of top model actress, outside of that, outside of my narcissistic family, outside of everything. Because what we have to understand is let's say this, society is built from people, not from God, right? Think about that. So these societal ideals that we're trying to live in, narcissists actually adopt these ideals when they annihilated their self. So they have to have societal measures to know I'm enough. So if you adopt that, you're kind of still in the cycle. And what I say is dare to be who you are, even if it's people don't like it, your biggest trigger, right? When you go against your biggest trigger, you're literally lifting yourself out of any fear identity. So I go against, oh, if you're supposed to do these things to be societally accepted, I laugh at it and I say, okay, but that's not me. And being who you truly authentically are is the most empowered experience of your life, because you don't give an F if people agree. You don't care what people are saying about you. That's the biggest thing, is understanding there's these gods of opinions that I used to be like, this was exhausting to me in my 20s. And then in my 30s and 40s, I was like, I don't actually give a fuck about what anyone thinks about me. What is that? And I said, because God thinks all these things about me that are amazing and loving. So why are these people have more authority over God?
Mm.
So
One of the
emotional is linking up with your authentic self outside of opinions, wounding, any of this shit that holds us back from our potential. So.
Yeah, to your point, I put out a video recently talking about the 4 types of people that narcissists hate. One of them was the independent person. And what's fascinating about this is that I'll in my coaching practice and in my personal experience, as crazy and as weird as narcissistic personalities can be, they, especially overt narcissists, tend to be pretty rigid as far as following certain
There,
guidelines. Things have to be this way. Things have to
yes,
be in a box, which
yes.
means if you are enjoying this or enjoying that or doing whatever, you're outside the box and it actually triggers them. And so I relate it to kind of like the Star Wars movie. You've got the dark side, and which is also called the Empire appropriately, because they're trying to build a certain way people live their lives. And it's
Yes.
led by Darth Vader, and it's real dark because that way of living can be dark. And what's interesting is the Jedi, which is the good side of the Force, is also called the rebels,
Oh
because
yeah.
they're the one. That's what the Empire calls them in the movie, is the rebels, because they're the ones that are against doing things in this orderly way. And so I do encourage people, be rebels. And it's okay if narcissistically abusive people, it's okay if the Empire wants to call you a rebel, be a rebel.
You know what, Kevin? Is it being a rebel or being autonomous? Because narcissists hate your autonomy because it's their way or the highway, which is why narcissists hate very free thinking, creative people, me, because you're going to do your own thing and follow your own inner guidance. And that is death to them, because then they can't be better than you and lead you and control you and manipulate you. Those of us who grew up highly sensitive, who have our own wiring that we're really connected to, are the biggest nightmare for these parents and these partners, because they simply can't control you because you're very connected to self and your own
And
way of
teachers, by the way, and some.
teachers are teachers. Because let me say one last thing is, when we're looking to these authority figures to mirror us, you have to remember they're wounded. So you're getting a wounded mirror that's inaccurate from the beginning. God is the only mirror that's not wounded. So why would you go to these authority figures who are miserable, a lot of them, who are mean to people? Just look at them. I say to everybody, look at your parent or the authority figure that hurt you or bullied you, whoever it is. Look at them. Do you really care about their opinion?
Most of my teachers absolutely were miserable when I was when I was a child, young and in school. I could not for the life of me figure out what was wrong with some of these
Same.
teachers.
You could
It's
see
like, what in the world? And
you
boy,
know,
they just had it out for if you didn't look at them, it was back to the class, nose in the wall. I was, wow.
no, it's really amazing. I hate to say this, but it's true. And I really think that you're going to agree with this. I remember seeing these parents from these teachers, which I say that because my mother was a teacher, but I remember seeing these teachers and I was like, oh my God, they're on a power struggle because they're so disempowered.
Mm.
They want to overpower me because I'm not listening. So they're going to label me. I'm like, I don't think there's anything wrong with me. I think you're the problem. And that's what happens a lot of the time, is the scapegoat child is one that's seeing the truth and telling it out loud. And they're like, you're not seeing the truth. You're the problem. Because if you see that you're not the problem, you're going to see the problem that they are.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Candace, welcome to society. Candace, thank you for joining the Row We platform this morning. How can people get in touch with you, to work with you, and to get some emotional rehab?
Well, you can go to my website. It's CandaceVanDell.com. My YouTube is also Candace Van Dell. My Instagram, everything is just my name. All links are at my website. So please please have a look. I'd love to have you join.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you so much for joining the Royal We today, and we will talk again. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this program. Hope that you enjoyed this interview with Candace Van Dell. Do check out her Instagram and her site. And as I said before, if you do need one-on-one support and coaching, consider heading on down to the description box, schedule some one-on-one time with me. Not only will you find access to Candace, but you'll also have access to one-on-one appointments with me as well. And I'll be back with more videos for you right here on The Royal We. Be sure to like and subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed already. And give it a thumbs up. Share this video with somebody who needs to hear it right now. And now, before you leave, consider checking out one of these videos. The YouTube algorithm has selected these videos for you. And so I'm believing that it's going to be a good match for what it is that you are needing to hear right now. So check out one of these videos. And I'll be back right here on The Royal We.